The main character was reincarnated here, with no talent. Despite being the son of a nobleman, he was frequently bullied by his own brothers. Since his mother died early, he became an outcast. From then on, he soon realized that he had to earn a lot of money to survive. In this filthy and brutal medieval world, he immediately threw himself into a harsh and disciplined process. To start, high-intensity training based on exercise physiology, a balanced meal plan based on nutrition science, combat-style striking drills based on mixed martial arts, endless hours of training piled up. To this day, he has worked diligently without missing a single day. How strong is he? All that is known is that, with his bare hands, he can dent the legendary armor of the Empire's #1 knight. But that is also why he was hunted down and exiled. In a pitch-dark ancient forest, a beast was grazing, but wariness shone in its eyes. The apprentice hunter was drawing his bow, trying to follow the instructions of the master behind him. The bow was fully drawn. The sound startled the entire forest. The beast almost fainted from fear, but it was completely unharmed, because this fool had snapped the entire bow. The master burst into tears, as it was a brand new bow he hadn't even had a chance to use. The old man couldn't understand why a noble like him would learn to be a hunter, instead of learning swordsmanship. It wasn't the first time Rohan had heard this. But swordsmen won't make any money if no one hires them. Then the two of them continued searching for something to hunt. Rohan died in the modern world, and was reincarnated into this world. Although this young man was a nobleman, he held the lowest status in his family, let alone inheritance. He considered himself lucky just to not be kicked out of the house empty-handed by his siblings after the power struggle. Suddenly, the old master told him to be quiet. Ahead, a pack of wolves was devouring something. Instantly, an arrow shot forward and embedded itself in a tree trunk. The pack of wolves fled in a panic. He narrowed his eyes. The world he was reincarnated into was a medieval one, pragmatic and ruthless. Even death won't let you rest in peace. The two of them looked at the corpse and wondered if it was a villager, but the body was mangled beyond recognition. The weak are food for the strong. That is a harsh reality. Rohan realized a truth. That is, if you're not strong, you must have money. Lots and lots of money. When he first arrived, he quickly realized he possessed no so-called talent or gift, so his goal had to change. Money. As long as he had money, he would have the freedom to do as he pleased. So he swore to scrape together every silver coin and save up a great deal of money, while his old master told him to look. A small magic herb grew from the tree trunk. It was a precious medicinal herb that helped stop bleeding and awaken the mind. Before they could finish admiring it, the herb was immediately plucked. Rohan put it in his bag with greedy eyes. Then, they noticed a bag at their feet. It was clearly not Rohan's. The old man seemed to realize something. Immediately after, the howls of a wolf pack rang out. They immediately rushed toward the source of the sound. Up there, a little girl was crying for help on a tree branch, with a pack of hungry, ferocious wolves below. The old hunter recognized the little girl as Dell, Robert's daughter. The pack of wolves detected the humans and furiously turned back. Seeing how numerous they were, the old man panicked and told them both to retreat quickly to find help. But Rohan just ran straight forward like a fool. The old man yelled a warning that these weren't ordinary wolves but man-eating monsters, but he couldn't stop him. Suddenly, the old man realized something. Could it be that he wanted to use himself as bait to distract the wolves and save the little girl? As for Rohan, he was just wishing he had learned how to hunt sooner. To him, this was a lucrative profession. Look at that, 10 wolves. The mere thought of skinning them and selling their pelts for money was enough to make Rohan drool. Then he let out a loud shout. The uncle became even more panicked when he saw that this lousy nobleman's swordsmanship was unlike any other. Feeling insulted, the wolves immediately lunged forward. They were very fast. In a single breath, they had reached Rohan. Powerful fangs clamped down on his sword, biting deep into the steel, and then the sword shattered. The second wolf attacked from the flank, aiming straight for his neck. This fatal bite would surely kill Rohan. The old man was in despair, calling his name in helplessness. Meanwhile, in the domain of the Yates family, they were parading to inspect their lands. The horse hooves trod past the grim faces of the impoverished commoners. They were all trembling with hunger, reeking of a foul stench. The 8th concubine could only cover her nose with a fan as she passed by. The eldest son remained expressionless. The old lord, however, snarled a curse, saying that this rabble was as filthy as ever. Philip reported that they couldn't find Rohan anywhere, even during an important family parade like this, and asked his father if he should send soldiers to search for him. The drunken old lord couldn't care less about that son, even declaring that if he died somewhere like his mother, it would have nothing to do with him. Suddenly, he looked to the side of the road, and saw a large pile of hay. The old man then asked why hay was piled up at the village gate. An old farmer replied that because that spot contained traces of Rohan's training, he had covered them up to make the road look cleaner. Gesson scoffed, saying what would that useless vermin of a son know about training? But he still glanced over and was slightly startled. The tree trunks were marked with very deep fist marks, and dozens of large trees had been broken by punches. Truly monstrous. Meanwhile, the wolf had pinned Rohan down. It seems it choked on the first bite. You could say this was the toughest arm it had ever bitten in its life. The next second, only a yelp was heard, and then the wolf was hit so hard it doubled over and was sent flying. Rohan had never liked fighting with swords. Fists were his specialty, and now he was calling the pack of wolves money-printing machines. That's right, even if there were more of them, he would still call them money-printing machines. Humiliated and stripped of their honor, the entire pack of wolves charged forward at once. Fangs would fight against fists. The fangs lost. The old hunter could only stare wide-eyed in disbelief. The wolves were getting their faces punched in. Each and every one of them met a cruel end. In the end, the entire pack was wiped out. Impossible. The old hunter couldn't believe someone so powerful existed. He's the real monster among this group of monsters. Rohan soon realized life in this world was not easy. He was often brutally beaten by his two half-brothers, who called him the motherless bastard. They never got tired of bullying him. He soon realized they would bully him to death, and that even if he died, no one would care. Therefore, he could only rely on himself to survive in this medieval world. Rohan's only advantage was his past life knowledge, having accumulated all sorts of academic knowledge during his job hunting process. Thus, he was superior to the people here, and he decided to use this knowledge first. High-intensity training based on exercise physiology. Next, a balanced meal plan based on nutritional science, although his meal looked a bit like shit to the point that even the servants had to inquire. Third is the practical combat martial art MMA. He spent his entire time training, lasting from many years ago until now. The Rohan of now, robust and well-built, and as strong as a beast. He also seems to be addicted to training. The more he trains, the more invigorated he feels. Perhaps this strength is a blessing from a god, or just the starting condition for a trial. Back in the present-day forest, Rohan had finished clearing out the monsters. Their corpses were scattered everywhere. Old man Joseph immediately picked up little Dell to check if she was okay. Then he turned back and let out a long sigh, saying that the situation just now was extremely dangerous. And he also said that he was moved by the nobleman's resilience. But it seemed Rohan wasn't paying any attention. He was just focused on examining the valuable wolf carcasses. Then he picked up a few of the biggest, fattest wolves, checked on the little girl for a moment, and she thanked him very much. But something made Dell freeze. Behind Rohan were a pair of large red eyes, along with a chilling growl. All three of them turned around. Sure enough, there it is. An alpha wolf as big as an elephant appeared. Joseph was terrified once again, his face drained of all color. Then he yelled for them to run, saying they had to get the army to be able to fight this thing. Surprisingly, this madman wasn't afraid. He even looked intrigued because he thought a medieval world wouldn't have monsters. Rohan casually confessed to killing this monster's minions for money. This made it feel as if 3 generations of its wolf ancestors had been dishonored. Clearly, in the alpha wolf's eyes, he was just a foolish prey that didn't know to flee. The alpha wolf opened its massive maw, but the bite missed. Rohan casually scooped up some mud and rocks, and threw it straight into its watermelon-sized eyes. The powerful throw tore a gash in its eye. Rohan immediately felt a pang of regret, because if this pelt was torn, it would be worth less when sold. The alpha wolf, in agony, flew into a rage, roaring furiously. It then let out a long howl. It was deafening. Could this be a sonic attack? It was even powerful enough to nearly paralyze Rohan's mind, causing him to suddenly recall the sounds of a certain battle. A knight was decapitated. Then he screamed in fear. Rohan composed himself. He couldn't understand what had just happened. The wolf was also nowhere to be seen, while the other 2 were unconscious. But they were both safe. He hurried to bring the 2 back, fearing that any delay might lead to an encounter with more beasts. As for these wolf carcasses, he could only leave them behind with regret, because you couldn't just leave a person behind to bring them back anyway. The massive moon hung high in the sky. He wondered if the villagers were looking for this little girl, and maybe he could score some points with his father, which made Rohan excited. He might even kick out the eldest son and make him the heir because of it. Just kidding, he really just hoped for a position as a guard to not have to worry about daily meals. That was more than enough. Suddenly, up ahead, he saw a large crowd of people parading. Damn it. His eldest brother, Philip, immediately and loudly scolded him for missing their father's inspection day. He had indeed forgotten. Then his fat old man struggled down from his horse, calling him a bastard before he was even off. Rohan knelt down and immediately began to explain, but he wanted him to be silent. Then he loudly demanded to know why he was being so disrespectful, threatening to split his head open with this battle axe. Rohan could only curse his bad luck under his breath. If only he could have brought back at least one wolf pelt, it would have been something. But he had not given up yet. He decided to turn the crisis into an opportunity. He immediately turned to the two unconscious people and proudly proclaimed that he had gone to rescue them for the safety of the residents in the territory. An old farmer immediately rushed forward, calling out his daughter Dell's name, and wept, saying he had searched everywhere but couldn't find the girl. Seizing the opportunity, Rohan immediately recounted his heroic feat of fighting dozens of man-eating wolves. He added that he believed it was what a son of a knightly family should do, a statement that deeply moved the townspeople. After that, Rohan quickly bowed his head, asking for forgiveness for this one time so he could continue to protect the people of the territory. He also didn't forget to ask to organize a village self-defense team, volunteering himself as its leader, which angered his older brother. As expected, his job application skills were still very sharp. The old knight Gesson burst out laughing, called out to the future captain, and asked where his proof of defeating the wolf was. How truly bitter. But Rohan didn't stop there, continuing to insist that he was not lying, and added that he had even encountered a giant wolf. Upon hearing this, all the villagers were terrified. His father flew into a rage. Believing this scoundrel dared to deceive even his own father, he swore he would cut off that lying mouth. Without further ado, Rohan understood that he would have to fight him as proof. That was fine too. He said he would do his best to demonstrate his real strength. There really was no other way. Gesson grinned, seeming to be very pleased. Then he ordered Rohan to draw his sword, as this was a serious duel for adults. But he had never learned swordsmanship. Sweat broke out. His father was a real bastard. And so, in front of the villagers, the father and son faced off. However, his sword was already shattered. Old man Gesson sighed, cursing his son for being so useless, and told Philip to quickly lend him a sword. Philip was suddenly being kind, telling him to apologize to his father instead of fighting, as that would at least give him a chance of survival. Rohan bluntly said he had done nothing wrong, so why apologize? And now that things had come to this, an apology wouldn't solve anything. Then he immediately told Philip to step aside so he could get ready to fight. The old man glanced over at his son, saw that he was truly serious, while Rohan believed this could earn him recognition. Suddenly, Rohan roared. Old man Gesson was terrified, for the thing charging at him looked like a ferocious, red-eyed demon. The father and son's weapons finally clashed. The axe blade deflected the sword, which whizzed past Rohan's head, but Rohan countered with a flurry of thrusts at the old man's helmet, knocking him to his knees. Enraging the old man, gathering momentum and lunging forward, but the axe grazed past his face. The 8's children watched in horror. Those were all lethal moves. Gesson slashed down relentlessly, saying as he swung that the reason he didn't let Johann learn swordsmanship was that even if he finished his training, he would still know nothing, only fit to be an insect, and that no matter how hard he tried, he could never surpass him. In his frenzy, Gesson declared that no one could take this land from him, not even Johann or the king himself. Johann guessed the old man was drunk. However, blood was flooding into his eyes, making it hard to see. Philip suddenly shouted his name. The townspeople gaped in horror, only to see the axe stopped by the hilt of Johann's dull sword, right above his face. But even this last sword couldn't withstand it. Shattered into pieces, Gesson declared that he had lost, and to know his place, and that if he dared to get in his way again, he would surely lose his head. Then Gesson walked away. The people immediately gathered around. Someone even cursed the Lord, calling him despicable, from inside this church. And the one who cursed was none other than priest Valburga. Because he had the backing of the Holy See, he feared no one. Valburga was furious, unable to believe a knight would treat the boy who had protected the people this way. Johann considered himself quite lucky, as he was still alive after all. Meanwhile, a cleric wrapped a bandage around his head to stop the bleeding. And regarding that match, Valburga said it was far too unfair, as Gesson was clad in a full suit of armor. Johann could only give a wry smile. He really hadn't thought that despite not knowing swordsmanship, he would be so useless. Valberga, however, was not surprised at all. As Gessen was a knight who had fought hundreds of battles, it would have been strange if he had defeated him. For a simple example, he was a knight from a neighboring region who had single-handedly wiped out an army of 300 serfs. Damn it, Johann's jaw dropped upon hearing that, and then believed that to do that, one must possess a skill, and he too had faced a wolf as big as a mountain. Hearing that, Valberga was startled. He turned around, grabbed him, and asked loudly if it was the big black wolf. Not only did he see it, but Josepel and Del saw it as well. The cleric immediately took out a holy symbol and prayed for his mercy. Then he took out a thick book, saying that the black wolf has long been a creature of ill omen. Among priests, it is called the harbinger of death. Johann didn't much believe in these superstitions, but perhaps it was true, as it was an omen for his unlucky battle today. Valberga also reassured him that it was truly just an old legend, and that God would always protect Johann, because he always thought of others more than himself. Johann felt it wasn't quite right, but just forced a smile. Meanwhile, in Lord Baron's territory, screams and wails echoed everywhere, mingling with the smoke and fire. The people there were enduring a massacre, a bloody one, by a band of fully armored soldiers, slaughtering and burning the bodies, leaving nothing behind. They will do anything as long as they get paid. At the wide-open city gate, a man was presenting a spoil of war to his lord, a signet ring of the Brits family. The ring looked special. He immediately gripped it tightly in his hand. The lord looked at the dead enemy, saying that he had expected a better performance from a knight who single-handedly killed 300 serfs, but the man couldn't even withstand 2 blows. Karamov solemnly gave the order, in the name of the Holy Empire, "Go and retrieve the king's seal, and punish all the arrogant and disrespectful nobles. Whoever follows the king shall be granted eternal wealth and honor. Advance, kill them all, and burn everything." The words had barely been spoken when the goblin horde surged forward like a rushing torrent. That night, he dreamed of the familiar battle scene again, between 2 people clad in full armor. Each blow was lethal, the cold, resounding clang of weapons. Suddenly, the purple sword sliced through the other, cutting the knight's head off. Blood splattered everywhere. The head rolled and clattered on the ground. And the one who was killed was so familiar. Johann woke up with a start. The monstrous nightmare had shattered his sleep once again, ever since he encountered that thing. This nightmare had been haunting him for days. Recalling Valberga's words, that the black wolf was a sign of disaster, he wondered if it was true, or if he was just worrying too much. Johann could only keep telling himself that even the priest said it was just a nonsensical folktale, and he hadn't done anything wrong to that wolf. That's right, nothing too wrong. Damn it, it seems he forgot he was the one who caused the wound on the wolf's eye. Brooding over it was pointless. He went out to train before dawn. Suddenly, an effeminate man's voice called him a bastard from behind. It turned out to be his 2 half-brothers. They mocked him, reminding him not to forget their father's warning. Don't act like a good-for-nothing or you will die. And that no matter how hard he trained, it would be pointless anyway. For these 2, taunting Johann had become an addiction. There was no other way. Johann tuned out the chattering of those penguins. A single punch shattered the base of the tree. The other 2 were stunned with fear. The tree trunk crashed down onto the ground. Johann turned back and asked what the 2 guys had just said. The 2 chickens scrambled away, declaring they would go tattle to their father. What a bunch of scum. Johann needed to put this matter aside and continue finding a stable way to survive. Suddenly, another voice rang out, saying that those 2 guys weren't wrong. Philip declared that his father had no intention of handing over any position to him in the future, referring to the post of the village guard captain. Johann said it wasn't a problem. As long as the man hadn't killed him yesterday, that was enough. Philip asked if Johann was disappointed. He replied that it couldn't be helped. He just had to find another way to survive. Philip added that his father was afraid of him, which made Johann pause. As expected, Johann was too strong enough to threaten him, and he only liked obedient children like Philip, while Johann always wanted to do things his own way. Gessen was truly afraid that one day Johann would take everything from him, just as he had seized the lordship from his own father. Johann was half believing, half doubting, but it seemed this wasn't wrong. Then Philip told a servant to bring a sack. "Open it." Johann took a close look. Inside was a simple coat, a longsword, and a spare suit of plate armor that had been in the castle for a very long time. Philip knew his younger brother had liked them for a long time. Johann broke out in a sweat. Then Philip sincerely said that he was not like old man Gessen. He wasn't stupid enough to chase away a talented person. So when he became lord, he wanted Johann to do something, to become the captain of the guard. He then told him to keep practicing and stay out of trouble. Johann shouted that he had never caused any trouble himself. His damn brother gave him the middle finger, and then left. Johann's eyes sparkled. You see, he had been dreaming of this lovely item for a long time. It's just that it was also the very suit of armor he wore before being killed in his dream. Johann picked it up. He put it on decisively, believing that no matter what happened, he would find a way to overcome it. That's right. If his equipment was good enough, he could still win. Dusk. Everyone was eating and drinking merrily in the tavern, and they were endlessly praising the great feat of the hero Johann, who slaughtered 50 wolves, left the pelts behind, drew his sword and declared that a knight needs no money. Surely he was the one worthy of being a true knight. A far cry from that old drunkard Gessen. Meanwhile, a suspicious hooded figure sat in the back eavesdropping. An old farmer rushed over, put an arm around the stranger's shoulder, and announced that this round was on him for everyone. This old man was none other than Dell's father, and the party was in honor of the hero Johann. The friendly villagers asked the stranger where he came from, as they had never seen him before. The man just cackled, a deathly aura emanating from his body, and then bluntly declared that these peasants who dared to speak ill of the Lord truly had a death wish. These words sent a chill down everyone's spine. The man, however, became even more excited, wanting them to tell him more about that Johann fellow. Meanwhile, Johann was cheerfully heading home. The best news of the day was Philip's promise to make him captain of the guard if he became lord. This was his path to fortune. Suddenly, he saw a drunkard leaning in a doorway. So, acting professionally, he rehearsed his role as captain, telling the gentleman that he shouldn't sleep there because he might get cold. However, there was a chilling sensation, along with a flash of metallic light. Like the wind, the man circled behind him and pressed a knife to his neck. Johann doesn't understand what the hell this situation is. At first he thought it was an assassin from Gessen, but that old man wouldn't do that. He would rather come and beat him to death himself. Or was he sent by the concubine, madam? It was pointless. So he asked the guy what he wanted. Do you need money? I'll give you all the money I have, just let me go. The other man just coldly replied that he had plenty of money. This made Johann genuinely terrified, proving that this problem would be difficult to solve. The man wanted to ask him a few things. If he didn't cooperate, this blade would start to cut a line from here. Damn it, Johann was afraid that if he gave the wrong answer, his life would be over. So he, with his eyes blazing, decided to answer truthfully, and the questioning began. But before that, the assassin looked down. He checked the boy's biceps, unable to believe that someone so strapping could be the son of that pig, Gessen. Then asked him if he was really the son of old man Gessen. God, he truly didn't know how to answer this question. He was going to die, but it seemed the other man wasn't actually asking, just musing aloud that he never expected a pig could give birth to a lion. Then he fell silent. Was he waiting for an answer? But the other man just snorted, then burst into a fit of laughter, declaring that he liked that answer. But from now on, Johann, son of Gessen, would be his. What kind of absurd situation is this? This old man in the hood is Kegel, the venom master of the Nessos Guild, the Empire's top assassin unit. After honing his skills through countless assassinations, he perfected a swordsmanship style of his own. His movements were likened to a venomous snake, earning him the nickname Viper. However, he had one concern. He couldn't find anyone to pass on his swordsmanship to. He tried looking within the Assassin's Guild, but, regrettably, they were all maggots unworthy of inheriting his techniques. A few had some potential, but they refused, thinking that being an assassin was a dirty profession. Then just accept death. They all chose death while constantly talking about honor. 30 sons of knights were killed by this old man. Growing impatient in his search for a successor, Kegel sought out the Empire's sorceress in frustration. Sinister laughter rang out. The beautiful witch, who hadn't brushed her teeth in 3 years, said that his beloved disciple was waiting for him at Eight's castle. Horrified and believing that learning this sword style would be very expensive, Johann asked in a loud, annoyed voice how much it would cost. The old man didn't need money. The impoverished Johann's eyes immediately lit up, believing he had hit the jackpot. Master, what took you so long? I've been waiting for someone like you for so long. It was a long-awaited reunion. Kegel reiterated that this was the swordsmanship of an assassin. Learning it would tarnish his family's knightly honor, so Kegel asked if he still truly wanted to learn. Johann didn't care, stubbornly insisting on learning it no matter what. This kid made the old man sweat. It was the first time he had ever seen someone like this. Suddenly, Johann held out his hand, saying that if he did well in his studies, he should be given an allowance, since his master had said he had a lot of money anyway. Kegel looked at this rascal, finding his most prized direct disciple to be a bit despicable. At the gate of Eight's castle, old man Segan rode away on his horse after the domain's inspection. He left the castle in the care of two people. One was his concubine, Lady Madam, and the other was his eldest son, Philip. But both of them wanted to be the sole master. Madame bluntly declared that the castle was hers, no matter how much Philip struggled, while Philip declared his indisputable right of inheritance. Segan, who was all too familiar with this scene, looked disgusted and let the other two do as they pleased. Suddenly, Philip mentioned that Johann still hadn't come home and asked him what to do. The reply was a roar from the old man, making Philip cower in fear. Gessen declared that they shouldn't care about that weakling, even if he died somewhere. Philip understood, but in reality, he was truly worried about Johann. Meanwhile, near Eight's castle, Johann asked to borrow his master's sword, because he had broken his own earlier. Kegel handed the sword to him. What kind of person breaks a sword? The more he thought, the more he felt this true disciple was completely untrustworthy. Then he took his stance, and asked his disciple if he was ready. But Johann's stance was clearly from MMA, the only difference being his left hand was also holding a sword. Kegel sighed. It seemed he would have to kill yet another good-for-nothing. But Johann, as if reading his mind, asked if he could fight in his own style. Of course he could. His master allowed him to use anything to fight, even shit. And so he threw a punch with his sword-holding hand, landing a direct blow. That moment, Kegel realized. All his displeasure with this brat vanished, to the point that he had to exclaim, "How unreal! This sword has indeed shattered." Holding the broken hilt, Johann punched continuously at his master. The punches created a strong gust of wind. It was terrifying. Kegel knew that if just one punch landed, his skull could be crushed. Clearly, this brat was not human, but a mighty lion. However, the old man still decided to draw his sword, to teach this kid what the sword of a venomous snake is. Johann was horrified, not knowing where that snake-shaped blade came from. Very quickly, he took a hit to the face, fell backward, saw him scrambling to his feet. Instead of lying passed out on the spot, Kegel was very impressed, praising that if it were 1,000 years ago, this kid would surely have been a hero. Johann humbly thanked his master, but Kegel said that he had a fatal flaw, that he would surely die in combat. The uneducated Johann, of course, did not know what his weakness was. His master said that weakness was his lack of control over his own power. The inexperienced young boy couldn't believe such a ridiculous weakness existed, so the old man opened his cloak, revealing over a dozen different weapons. He declared that if the boy didn't believe him, he should just try again. "If you break my sword instead of yours this time, I'll give you the gold coins you love so much." Upon hearing this, the impoverished Johann rushed in like a moth to a flame, completely disregarding his own life. The weapons clashed, and on the very first strike, Johann's sword shattered. Damn it. The shards clattered to the ground at his feet. It even cut his face. He realized the current battle was exactly the same as when he fought his father. The master said that he was defeated by his own power, and advised him to learn how to control his power, or he would surely die. At that moment, he also discovered a sword fragment was stuck in his armor right over his heart, and he asked if the old master had done it on purpose. The old man didn't deny it, saying it was just child's play. Now Johann understood that he had almost died just now, and he resolved to learn how to control his power properly, so he could become the commander of the Eight's Castle Guard, and enjoy a life of wealth and luxury. Kegel continued, "When you master controlling your strength, you can do things like this too." Just as he finished speaking, the master's scabbard swung. It was too fast, and since Johann's sword was already broken, he couldn't block it. Damn it, it sliced cleanly through his armor. Johann was stunned, unable to believe it. That was why Kegel said that good control over one's power could produce miracles. Eager and ambitious, Kegel didn't know just how strong this disciple of his had become. "All right, the entrance test is over." Kegel asked him if he was ready to begin the hellish training. The poor disciple immediately and firmly agreed. The next morning, Johann was walking in the middle of the street, with the agonized face of a boar. His only achievement from the first training session was not breaking his sword anymore. He had no idea when he would be considered to have good control of his power. Suddenly, he saw a troop of elf soldiers appearing at the castle gate. He went over to inquire, but was shooed away by the elf captain. Johann immediately pointed at them and asked who they were to dare shoo him away. The other guy just smirked. introducing themselves as the Aquitaine Wolf Mercenary Company, serving the Emperor. Upon hearing this, Johann had a complete change of attitude, enthusiastically asking about their mercenary work, believing it was also a good career opportunity. The soldiers burst out laughing, saying their income was low, just 2 gold coins per mission, but Johann already found that salary to be astronomical. He became even more enthusiastic about chatting with them, and in no time they were as close as brothers. The reason was that the pay was too attractive, being many times higher than a guard captain's salary. Suddenly, a figure in golden armor approached. He rode past Johann, his killing intent so immense it darkened the sky. Johann felt that something was terribly wrong. He suddenly had the urge to draw his sword. Instantly, all swords were pointed at him. Was it instinct? An elf immediately shouted, "How dare you draw your sword before Lord Karamov? I will cut your head off right now." But the Lord raised his hand to stop him. He asked who the boy was. In a life-or-death situation, Johann tried to remain calm, and politely said that he belonged to the Eitz family, the son of Gessen. The Lord took off his helmet. He was Karamov, an imperial knight of the Holy Empire's emperor. Johann broke out in a cold sweat. He couldn't understand how he had been so careless. Not even when facing the Black Wolf, or fighting with his father, had he ever felt like this. A terrifying, overwhelming presence. It was as if he were prey, cowering before the hunter. Fortunately, the Lord simply told him to step aside and not block the way. Then, someone patted him on the back. The soldiers cheerfully asked about him, reminding him not to make the same mistake next time. The apprentice knight, Yane, asked the Lord if it was all right to let that rude man off so easily. The reason was very simple. He didn't want to cause trouble on such a beautiful day. Then the whole group left in peace. Johann now knew what the knights of the Empire were like. Why would he come to such a backwater place? As soon as he heard that Lord Karamov had arrived, Philip rushed to welcome him. He cordially inquired what brought his lordship here, but when he arrived, he found Madame already fawning shamelessly over the distinguished guest, and even introducing her son as the future lord. She even brazenly flirted with him in front of everyone, but the lord seemed cold and uninterested. Philip, seething inwardly, gave her a look as sharp as a knife. Upon entering the drawing room, Karamov immediately asked, "Where is Gessen?" The room fell into a tense silence, as no one had ever dared to address Lord Gessen so bluntly. Fulfilling his duty, Philip said that no matter how famous Karamov was, he had no right to address Lord Gessen in that manner. Meanwhile, Madame jumped in, declaring that the greatest knight of the Empire could address him however he pleased, and that she would be taking full charge of hosting Lord Karamov from now on. The vile woman's words only made Philip angrier. She was taking every opportunity to become the next mistress of this castle. Karamov propped his sword down, shouting for everyone to be quiet. He then told them to bring wine at once and then get lost, and declared that he would sit here and wait for Gessen to return. At the edge of the forest, Johann and his master were still engrossed in their training, but in Johann's mind, he was still haunted by that man. His master immediately shouted at him to focus. Simultaneously, a barrage of hidden weapons flew out. Damn it. A single moment of carelessness and his neck was grazed. Kegel asked him why he wasn't concentrating, pointing out that if the hidden blade had been poisoned, he would be a goner. Johann then told him about the group of people claiming to be the Emperor's knights, stationed in the village, saying he had a bad feeling about them. This is the territory of the Eitz family after all. Sealing the city gates and controlling access is highly unusual. Kegel believed that even if they were suspicious, there was nothing they could do. Karamov, the Emperor's personal knight, he is the strongest warrior on the continent, and the core military force of the Holy Empire. Even the armor he wears is legendary. Johann wondered how he compared to his master. The old man fell into a thoughtful silence, and quickly declared he would run away immediately if he had to face that guy. Johann was about to say that they had to fight to know who was stronger, but before he could finish speaking, he was hit on the head. An idiot who can't control his own power shouldn't be passing any judgment, and must focus on training immediately. Johann seriously wanted to start over. Very good. The master and student resumed their fight, but he was hit, and his master shouted again. Then he got hit again. Johann started to wonder why this kept happening. He couldn't even cut through his master's normal scabbard. He suddenly realized he shouldn't swing the sword with brute force, but focus his power on the tip of the blade. That's right. Channel the flow of power into the tip of the sword. Johann finally grasped the first step of power control. The old man also noticed that the dull sound from his sword had become sharper. The battle dragged on, and the number of times Johann was hit decreased. It's time. Johann applied what he had learned. Kegel immediately sensed danger. A snake-like slash rushed towards him. A clean cutting sound echoed. A beautiful slash. It had sliced through both the master's scabbard and his sword. Amazing, he did it. Johann jumped up and down in joy, while Kegel believed the kid was just lucky. So the stubborn old man declared that this time it wouldn't be as easy as before. As soon as the words were spoken, another snake lunged at him. It went on to sever the sword and knocked the old man to the ground. Johann had won again. Damn this kid. Kegel obviously hadn't taught him the serpent's tongue secret technique, yet he managed to imitate it after seeing it just once. It was even more powerful, more perfect than his own execution. The old man pondered. The old assassin's experience was telling him, at this very moment, Johann had become an opponent he could not defeat unless a miracle occurred. Kegel, the master of the Empire's strongest assassins guild, has now lost to his newly accepted disciple, and he's a ridiculous kid at that. So the old man had nothing left to teach him, and said he would leave the next morning. Johann felt a bit let down. After all, he had only just started learning. Kegel admitted that even though it had been less than a week, the boy was now stronger than him. As long as his swordsmanship lived on, Kegel was content. He allowed the boy to live as he pleased. Johann understood. That night in the forest, the master and disciple sat talking by the fire. Johann took the opportunity to ask him about the black wolf. His master immediately asked him when he had seen it. Johann recounted his story, and said he often dreamed of being beheaded. Kegel told him that bad omens do not come in any fixed form, and he would give him a piece of advice. First, find weapons suitable for yourself made from Danu steel. It was a legendary metal, imbued with magic, that only existed in relics. The crafting method has been lost, so it can only be mined from ancient ruins. Because of this, weapons made from Danus are so rare there are only a few in the entire world. After hearing this, Johann immediately knew it was very expensive. Yes, so expensive that he couldn't afford it even if he saved for a lifetime. And yet he told Johann to prepare such a weapon. Johann believed he had a hidden agenda because he was an assassin. Kegel was tired of this foolish disciple, who always blamed him for being an assassin. And one more important thing, the color of items from Thepo Danus is very recognizable, an extraordinary and unmistakable appearance. If you see someone wearing it, it's best to run and not look back. The old man wasn't exaggerating, so Johann immediately took this to heart. Kegel stood up, adding that there were now things Johann had to commit to his very core. Don't fight an opponent you can't defeat. Run away if it's dangerous, but if you must fight, destroy them by any means necessary. If you just follow this advice, you will probably avoid death. Then the master left, his last words simply a hope that the boy wouldn't die. He just hoped that the boy wouldn't die. Johann vowed to remember everything the old master had advised. Meanwhile, at Castle 8's, the wine here does not please this lord. Madame was a bit regretful, as it was quite expensive. She enticed Karamov into Gessen's bedroom, where there would be better wine. Karamov was silent, while Madame promised not to disappoint him. In response, the elf lord sent her away. But the flirt was in a hurry, saying they didn't have much time before Gessen returned. This made the knight's eyes light up. He stood up, agreeing with the flirt, saying he was tired of sitting in one place. A piercing scream rang out. Madame died instantly. It turned out his favorite form of entertainment was murder. Outside the door, a terrified Philip covered his mouth with his hand. Johann returned to the village, but the sight made him freeze. There was fire everywhere. Dawn had not yet broken, but Gessen and his men could already see black smoke rising from the direction of his castle. A servant said the fire was too large, and urged his master to retreat quickly. Overcome by rage, Gessen spurred his horse on, riding like the wind. He then stopped before the gates of his own castle. The red-cloaked guards opened the gates, taunting him as the slow piglord, and that Lord Karamov's patience had run out. Inside, his entire family had been slaughtered, from the old to the young. Then he emerged smugly, declaring that Gessen was too late. Gessen froze for a moment, then roared and pointed his axe at the madman. Karamov perfunctorily accused Gessen, then raised his sword as well. Gessen was old enough to understand that this was nothing but a purge. Without hesitation, he charged at Karamov in a rage. The man immediately gave the order to blow the war horn, seize the sigil of House 8's, and purge everyone in this territory. At once the war horn sounded. The mercenaries immediately stormed the nearest village, surging in like a torrent. Before long, the territory of House 8's was reduced to ashes. The person kneeling on the ground is the village's only monk, and because he refused to give up the person they were looking for, he was also to be executed. Fortunately, someone appeared from behind. A swift, sharp diagonal slash. The soldier's arm fell to the ground. Johann had arrived just in time. Valburga herself didn't know what was going on, only that the royal soldiers were suddenly massacring the villagers, and guessed that even Lord Gessen was dead. Johann was stunned. After all, that was his father. These vicious soldiers wanted to completely wipe out the territory and its people. Hearing that, Johann immediately wanted to return to the castle, but then he heard the sound of crying nearby. He walked over and saw the little girl Dell sobbing uncontrollably, and in front of him was Dell's father, tied to a post and executed with arrows. Damn it, that man was a kind father. He then turned to the other side. Their family was very friendly, had now become cold corpses. All the villagers he knew, not a single one survived. He went to Dell, telling her to stay with Valburga for safety. As for him, he had something he needed to do now. Valburga could only watch in despair, believing that fleeing was the best solution for him. Gessen's head was mounted in front of the castle. He was truly dead. Below, signs were posted detailing his crimes. Duke Gessen VIII was executed for treason against the emperor. Anyone attempting to recover his body without permission will receive the same punishment. And the one responsible, Karamov. A nearby soldier realized this was likely the prince they were searching for. The commander didn't expect him to return, instead of fleeing. Without a word, Johann directly cut the pillar down, stomping on the imperial flag. The soldiers immediately roared and rushed in to kill. Johann didn't run, but faced them without hesitation. One by one, they were beheaded. His slashes were frighteningly sharp, cut through everything. He trudged forward, heading straight for the castle, without understanding why he was compelled to do so. He should have listened to Valburga. Going there would only lead to a pointless death, and he didn't want that. Suddenly, someone called out to him. It was Philip. He asked him why he came back. Staying here will only lead to death. Philip took off his helmet and struggled to say that the day he became a lord, he would give this to him. Johann took it. It was also when Philip took his last breath. His master's words echoed, reminding him to know his own limits. Run away if there is danger. Even his master would run if the enemy was that man. Damn it. But if you're forced to fight, kill them, no matter what. That's right, this is the time. Johann put on his helmet. He headed straight into the castle. The bewildered soldiers couldn't understand how this guy got past the guards. They only saw him raise his fist. With a single punch he sent the soldiers flying and called out Karamov's name. As expected, he came out, with his sword drenched in blood, not forgetting to praise him for being so good at hiding. Karamov realized he was the one who had blocked his way the other day. But Johann wanted no more introductions. He was craving a bloody battle. Karamov believed he had wasted his life, but he was fine with it, ready to fulfill Johann's need to die. Johann's eyes shone like stars, ready for the battle. And so, the battle began. Johann and Karamov. On one side, the Avenger. On the other, the Empire's rank 1 knight. But the inevitable happened. His sword actually cut right through Johann's sword. He could only slide back to dodge, then quickly drew another sword, and continued to fight. Interesting. But the second sword was also cut in half. Just like that, he didn't know how many swords he had destroyed. Karamov slashed, directly cutting the pillar in two. As expected, the slash was too sharp. Nothing could withstand it. He had to admit that fighting this kid was more entertaining than many of the brutes from the neighboring village. Suddenly, a soldier was thrown over, but was also cut into 2 pieces by him. Too excited, he just wanted Johann to keep entertaining him. Suddenly, Johann launched a strike. Karamov's gauntlet was pierced by a large slash. It was an ordinary sword strike. Surprised, fresh blood was gushing from the torn armor. Karamov suddenly froze. This armor was made from the legendary Danu's steel, and it still shattered. His whole body trembled, while Johann picked up another sword. Fear flashed in Karamov's eyes. He had truly never encountered a human who could break through this armor. Johann simply continued to charge forward. His supersonic sword strikes relentlessly pressed the attack. However, Karamov soon realized, other than the ability to strike with extreme force, this brute had nothing more to him. With this thought, Karamov grew more confident. He counterattacked with a fatal thrust. Though it missed Johann, it destroyed his sword instead. Johann immediately kicked up the sword at his feet, and now he had another intact sword. Karamov realized the bastard couldn't even block a basic strike. In short, the bastard was just a third-rate swordsman without a single decent technique. Karamov decided to finish this guy off quickly by waiting for him to swing another big slash. That would be the moment. He would use the advantage of the Danu's sword to parry through Johann's weapon and cut off his head. As expected, Johann started just like that. But why was the sword path so erratic? A ferocious snake appeared in the hologram, making the attack unpredictable. After slashing at Karamov's armor, his sword cracked. but his right flank was severely injured. Blood spurted from his arm to his chest. He roared in fear. In his eyes, all he could see was a fist slowly rushing towards him. The low, muffled sound of a silenced cannon rang out. The renowned Danu's armor was dented by Johan's punch like a cheap toy. Not only that, the shockwave also directly burst through the backplate's dampening layer. Karamov spurted blood like a fire hose. He propped his sword on the ground. Fresh blood poured out endlessly. Damn it. By the time he realized Johan's deadly swordsmanship, it was too late. This brat had been hiding his true skills from the very beginning. Now his fate was sealed. He would die here, ending his rampage. Johan removed his helmet, threw it to the ground, and asked him why he did all this. Karamov said it was for the sake of His Majesty, the Emperor. The Holy Empire is more unstable now than ever. To set the Empire right, His Majesty drew his sword. The sword is known as Karamov. He kept choking on his own blood, but laughed maniacally, saying that he was deeply moved to have finally found an opponent as strong as Johan. Then he looked him in the face, inviting him to the royal capital to meet His Majesty. You would live in lifelong affluence, with more gold and silver than you could ever spend, along with rich and fertile lands, and His Majesty himself will knight you. Become the Emperor's sword with me. Did these words move Johan? He always thought of himself as someone obsessed with money. Strangely, he felt nothing at all now. Johan refused outright. Karamov couldn't believe it. Meanwhile, Johan started calling him a bastard, the one who massacred his family and innocent people. Karamov thought it was just a trivial matter. He shouldn't refuse the offer because of such a trivial matter. Those serfs. HMPH. So what if some serfs die? Was your mother a lowly serf or something? They're just weak bugs. In this world, the weak spill their blood, and the strong drink that blood. He's not wrong. Johan apologizes to his master, but this time he can't hold back anymore. Officially, using his fists to execute this bastard, just like that, until the knight's entire body was covered in blood. His hands were also scraped. He wasn't quite dead yet, but he certainly wouldn't survive. Johan left. Karamov still insisted on calling him a fool for passing up the opportunity and even breaking the king's sword. He would be hunted to the ends of the earth. Johan didn't blink. He had already said what needed to be said. That's just how this world is. In the past, all he thought about was money. But now they massacred and burned everyone in our domain, my family and my neighbors. Even if the whole world becomes his enemy, he only did what had to be done. And you have no regrets. At this moment, Yane was inside the castle, when terrible news suddenly arrived. The soldier, with several broken teeth and his body covered in injuries, swore that he was telling the truth. That person had stormed in and taken down everyone. He grabbed Karamov by the head with his bare hands, and killed the Lord. But the problem was, the Lord's body was nowhere to be found. Yane could not believe the story without evidence. Meanwhile, the soldier could only insist that he was telling the truth. At that moment, a subordinate reported that the pursuit party had been assembled. On the other side, the sound of footsteps running at breakneck speed. Meanwhile, on this side, Yane issued a command. At all costs, that man must be killed. Johan Ates, the filthy child of a traitor, and the suspected killer of Lord Karamov. Johan carried Karamov's corpse, running without rest, one hand holding the corpse, the other fighting off the pursuing soldiers. Dozens more soldiers continued to be cut down by him, one with the strength to cut through even Danu's steel. They will chase him until he is exhausted. The soldiers were doubtful, asking if Karamov was dead. Yane didn't answer. He only gave the order, "Bring his head before His Majesty." Remembering his eldest brother Philip's words, his father's stable was 500 meters to the northwest. He would take one and try to survive. Sure enough, there was a stable over there, looking past the corpse. At first, he intended to hide it to buy some time, but he didn't expect the pursuers to arrive so quickly. This armor was also a good shield, so he would continue to wear it until he completely shook them off. My whole body is tired from all the running. Then he entered the stable. It was his father's warhorse. It was so powerful, thank God. He could rest on its back now. Now to give it a name. The warhorse nodded in anticipation. All right then, I'll call you Philip. Meanwhile, the commander saw the glint of Danis's armor and urged his soldiers to advance in that direction. That bastard must be nearby. Suddenly, the sound of horse hooves came from the bushes. A mighty warhorse leaped over their heads. On its back was Johan. There was no mistake, it was Johan. But the horse was too fast. The soldiers could only fire their crossbows all at once. As expected, the corpse took many more arrows, becoming a human shield. Under the light of the full moon, Johan rode through the dawn without stopping, quickly leaving the pursuers behind, back into the depths of a forest. Then he buried the corpse. Damn, Johann still felt a bit creeped out. He turned back. The armor of that guy had been taken off. As expected, it was an expensive piece, and especially this thing, light but heavy in a solid way. He tried to draw it. On the sword's blade were ancient imperial characters. Its meaning is, I am the one who recovers the seals. Seals reclaimer, huh? So it means he collects noble family seals? Even the name sounds ominous. Feels like a natural enemy of him, doesn't it? He decided to keep the sword, but buried the armor with its owner. It was too conspicuous, but he would definitely come back for it later. After finishing the burial, he was still trembling slightly. Once word of his death spreads, the whole empire will hunt Johann, and the many knights who follow him will try to avenge him. The more he thought about his words, the more worried he became. The suffering was one thing, as his life had been miserable long before Karamov arrived. More importantly, he had no idea what to do next, with nothing left, not even a single coin. Suddenly, someone appeared. Johann turned around, swinging his sword. It's that black wolf again. Damn it, why did it have to appear right when he's this exhausted? The two of them stared at each other without blinking. He wanted to run towards the horse, but then he heard someone announce that the horse was here. It turned out the pursuing soldiers had arrived. They had chased him all the way here. Hearing the noise, the commander immediately ordered his men to advance. They aimed their crossbows at him. Just great. In front was a black wolf as big as an elephant. Behind were the Empire's soldiers. There was no chance of survival. Just as he was despairing, the wolf lunged forward and leaped over him. It directly slaughtered the group behind him. In just a flash, the soldiers were wiped out. He thought he was dreaming. The monster had actually cleared a path for him to escape. Then he didn't hesitate. He let out a shout to steel his nerves, and took off like a shot, rushed towards the horse. One man, one horse, neighing loudly, charged straight out of the forest. He remembered Valberga, who had taught him as a child. And then he remembered the gentle people in the market, memories of this place. Everything flashed through his mind, all of it bundled into a single memory, including Philip, his terrible paternal half-brother. In the end, was the one who trusted him the most. Goodbye, Eight's village. Back at the wolf's place, the last soldier was dead. The red-eyed wolf watched, Johann's back fading into the distance. The guards were everywhere, still searching for him. Every escape route had been surrounded. The grueling escape forced even a disciplined man like Johann to suffer from hunger and sleep deprivation. Exhausted, Johann began to worry that he would be caught and executed. Suddenly, he heard a noise from behind. It was a caravan of nomadic merchants, consisting of a horse-drawn carriage and escorting guards. An idea sparked in his mind. Johann would disguise himself as one of them. That way, he could get past the checkpoint up ahead. The old beastman Eldance is a representative of the Ketana Trading Company. A soldier reported that up ahead, an armed knight had appeared, but the mercenary Goran immediately prepared for a potential fight. The young man Gamson was scornful, as they outnumbered a lone knight anyway. Captain Goran reminded him that the man was heavily armored and riding a warhorse, and should absolutely not be underestimated. With full body armor, his defense must be exceptionally high. Then Khan pointed out to the new soldier. The sword at the lone knight's hip with its distinct purple hue was a Danu's steel blade that could cut through iron like mud. Gosam was still skeptical. Could the 9 of them really not defeat that one man? This fool was then driven out by the others. They feared his stupidity would lead the entire party to a disastrous end. The old beastman decided to check the situation himself first, while the rest were to get ready. If anything unusual happened, he would give a signal for the whole party to charge forward at once. The two veterans both understood clearly. Eldance stepped down from the carriage. He then approached Johann. While in the background, the guards were discussing a plan to take him down. Eldance politely introduced himself and asked for the boy's name to avoid any misunderstanding. Johann was dumbfounded. My God, it's a talking cat. The atmosphere was very tense. Eldance really didn't want any trouble to happen. Johann knew he was being suspected because of his appearance, and needed to make the other party lower their guard. So he opened his mouth and said, "May the gods bless you. My name is Johann. I look like this because I was attacked by bandits while traveling, so there's no need to be too wary. So, could you please tell the people glaring at me not to attack?" The burden lifted from his heart. Eldance laughed in relief and apologized for his rudeness, explaining it was due to the suspicious nature of his profession. The distance between the two of them lessened, so Johann asked if he could join them, as he was now penniless. The old beastman stroked his beard thoughtfully, seeing that the young man wasn't too suspicious and also looked healthy. He then agreed. Eldance told him they were heading to Marcel and to go say hi to those gruff soldiers first. Johann thanked him, wondering where Marcel was. The old man turned back, telling them that this was just a wanderer but to remain vigilant. If there's any trouble, strike him down immediately. And so, Johann traveled with the merchant caravan. The soldiers at the blockade quickly spotted them. They began to order the group to stop for an inspection. Johann was nervous, just hoping to get through this place quietly. Eldance of the Katana Trading Company wishes to speak with the leader of the Aquitaine wolf pack. Hearing this name, the soldier was slightly alarmed. He knew that this company was quite reputable, with its headquarters in the powerful city of Marseille. Even the emperor wouldn't dare to mess with them casual. The soldier said with a smile that they were just hunting for a traitor. Just as expected, this checkpoint was indeed set up to capture Johann. Right after that, the man ordered him to take off his helmet. Johann then pretended to cough, and said that he had a skin condition on his face. Did your mother clench too hard when she was giving birth? Let's see that smashed-in face already. Take it off, if not. Are you hiding something? Damn it. The soldier was very serious. Looks like a fight is unavoidable. Suddenly, a loud noise rang out. Eldest cursed loudly, saying that this bunch was causing trouble for his company, and angrily demanded to see their commander, threatening that if this soldier got in his way, he would complain to their captain. A complaint from the official branch in Marseille. The captain at the checkpoint had no choice but to let them pass. Those guys looked a bit disappointed after hearing the order, not forgetting to remark that this pockmarked guy was very lucky. Johann sighed in relief. Blood was almost shed again. That night, everyone rechecked their equipment. The night watch duty was also divided. Eldance sat reading a book. Goran told Johann to go to sleep since he had no duty. He thanked him sincerely. Don't mention it. He immediately spread out a soft blanket. Finally, he got to sleep after all the exhaustion. That night, while he was fast asleep, there was a stir in the nearby bushes. One of Karamov's soldiers poked his head out. He gave an order. Everyone, prepare to surround Johann. That time, at the military base. During battalion-level tactical training, Defense in Depth defended against a large company-sized enemy force with minimal troops. Kim Johann, and through remarkable tactical sense, became a model for other soldiers. Therefore, this commendation and a 4-night, 5-day award are hereby granted. Battalion Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Kim Lee Park. That was Johann from his previous life. An extremely hard-working, optimistic, and ambitious young man, he thought this military life was a perfect fit for him. But outdated authoritarian culture, sweltering and freezing work conditions, murderous guard duty shifts. Worst of all, the pay was less than a rat's tail, which made him try to desert, but he failed. The nightmare woke him up in the middle of the night. My whole body still feels a bit sore. Johann looked up at the sky. The bright moon was being obscured by dark clouds. An arrow suddenly shot down, but he was fast enough to catch it. Damn it. Half a second slower, and it would have hit my eye. It must be those soldiers who followed me. Johann hurriedly stood up, wanting to warn the other mercenaries. He let out a loud roar. Immediately, everyone else could hear. 5 minutes ago, Gamson was still complaining why the new cavalryman wasn't assigned a watch shift, but Khan just told him to shut his mouth, because this guard duty was so important that they couldn't entrust it to a stranger, and also warned Gamson that if he acted recklessly without thinking things through, he wouldn't last long as a mercenary. Gamson was fed up with these lectures, and retorted that, if he had known this Goran squad was such a bunch of cowards, that they were afraid of a single armed knight, he would have never joined. Khan thought the kid had lost his mind, and they were about to fight to see who had the say here. But then a loud scream was heard. Then a rain of arrows poured down. Khan quickly used his shield to cover Gamson. A moment later, the rain of arrows stopped. He then ordered Gamson, and so, the proud young man ran away, crying, "What a disappointment. He's all talk." Goran also ran over to check on them. Now, the main priority is to see if Lord Eldance is safe. The old man had hidden under the carriage, trembling all over. Johann quickly found Goran and Khan, and told them to set up a defensive line around the carriage. Because they didn't know the exact direction of the enemy's attack, they needed to work together to fight. But Khan bluntly told him that he was not their master, so they would handle their own work, and Johann should take care of himself instead. They weren't wrong, but it did bring the enthusiastic guy's mood down a bit. Then, everyone prepared their weapons and shields. Johann was the only one without a shield, so he decided to ask for one. Eldance shouted from under the carriage that there weren't even enough shields for themselves, so what was there to give him? It turned out they didn't trust him at all. And then, those soldiers swarmed forward, their battle cries echoing with immense spirit. but on closer inspection, they didn't seem to be the court's Aquitaine mercenaries. Khan ordered them to prepare for battle, then they all charged forward. Strangely, they left him all alone with this carriage. The mercenaries were by no means weak, fighting while cursing the bastards who dared to ambush them, but the other side had superior numbers, and managed to overwhelm them with sheer force. Goran ordered his men not to fall back. If the front line broke, they would all be wiped out. An enemy seized the opportunity and punched him in the mouth. On Khan's side, he saw his captain was about to be stabbed to death by an enemy. Johann could not stand by and watch any longer. He unleashed a great slash with his Danu's sword. The other soldiers were stunned, seeing a deep purple gleam following the sword's path. Goran was horrified, seeing the man get sliced in two by Johann. That weapon of his. What in the world is it? The attackers stood frozen, not daring to advance, staring at the sword that was glowing with strange symbols. The runes engraved on the sword are absorbing blood. The leader immediately screamed that it was a demonic blade. They would never be able to defeat someone wielding this type of sword. Johann seized the opportunity and shouted loudly, "Everyone listen! Everyone listen! I am Johann Yates of the Yates family." Khan and Goran understood now. So this guy was a noble. Yates was just a family name he had made up, and he hoped it wouldn't be a problem. Of course the bandits had no idea what family that was, but attacking a noble was a death sentence. Johann pointed his sword forward, asking if they would surrender. Otherwise, there's only one outcome. The guard then urged them to consider carefully. What truly bad luck. And so, the bandit leader put down his sword. All of them followed suit. None of them wanted to die. Johann sheathed his sword. He then ordered Goran to blindfold them, and Goran immediately obeyed. Anyone who resists will be cut down on the spot. Eldest crawled out from under the carriage, as some people asked him what they should do next. They regretted having treated a nobleman so poorly. Eldance then came up with a plan to flatter Johann a little to appease him, and to express regret for not lending him the shield earlier. In return, they were willing to compensate him with a reward. Johann didn't make things difficult for the old man, saying only that it was enough that everyone was safe. He didn't even mention gifts or a reward. This was truly beyond the old merchant's expectations. Johann just said that having him lend the shield next time would be enough. Ashamed, Eldance immediately promised to personally hand the shield to him. Now, Johann went over to interrogate the bandits. Eldance also turned back to remind the guards to speak to him a little more formally. The leader of the bandits was brought forward. He knelt before Johann. Johann then asked why they had attacked. It turned out these men were soldiers from the Brits family, the survivors. The Brits family was falsely accused of treason and slaughtered, just like Johann's family. Their entire domain, from houses to people, was almost completely wiped out, and the culprit was none other than the mercenary group, the wolf pack of Aquitaine. They had resisted desperately, but when the noble executioner joined the fight, they were finally defeated and forced to retreat. This name was very famous. Everyone had heard of it. It was the Emperor's hunting dog, Karamov. After he finished confessing, he kowtowed repeatedly, apologizing for not knowing there was a nobleman in the group. They now had no means of survival. The royal court was hunting them, and the people called them cowardly deserters. That's why the whole group resorted to this path of banditry. To be sure, Johann asked again if there were any other reasons. Of course, it was for the money. The guild always has plenty of it. The moment these words were spoken, Eldance started cursing loudly. He even wanted to rush forward and beat that guy to death. He recalled that Karamov had also said everything he did was for the emperor. He understood. There was never any treason against the emperor in the first place. The emperor just needed an excuse to purge the nobility, an excuse to make Karamov the scapegoat. And this bastard, of course, took pleasure in the act of killing. These guys are also just victims of the times. For the moment, he didn't know what to do with them. Beside him, Khan grew impatient and asked Lord Johann to just tell them what to do. Johann said they had all the necessary information, so there was no need for further interrogation. Meanwhile, Gosam charged out with his mace, intending to beat the bandits to death. Fortunately, someone stopped him. What a worthless piece of trash. Gosam asked Khan why he stopped him. Khan glared, and asked what right a deserter like Gosam had to call for the punishment of those who had surrendered. Gosam couldn't deny it. While the prisoners cried and begged for their lives, Khan thought they should execute them, and asked for Johann's opinion, but he decided to disarm them and let them go. Hearing that, the others cried tears of joy, but Johann still carefully instructed them that there was no excuse for their robbery. It was clearly wrong, and that they should earn a living with their own hands, something even he had to learn. Hearing this, Eldance found it strange, a nobleman learning a trade. Seeing this scene, Khan and Goran could only give a wry smile. Those bandits robbed simply out of their own greed. Johann remained resolute, declaring he would spare their lives and that they must make an honest living for themselves. They left, leaving the bandits kneeling on the ground. Johann just wanted to get out of this place quickly. He was exhausted. Meanwhile, far away in the forest, the black wolf was still looking in Johann's direction. What was it thinking? Before reaching Marcel, Johann's group stopped to rest in the village of Lutzbeck. Look at him. He was so malnourished he was about to turn into a piece of dried fish. Dusk fell. The village chief of Lutzbeck was informed of Sir Eldance's arrival. He went outside. Eldance excitedly called out the name at once. Both were friends and had a good relationship. Eldance recounted their journey. They had encountered bandits, a situation made worse by the emperor's recent purge. The village chief joked that if anyone overheard, it would be off with their heads. By the way, he also boasted about a chivalrous nobleman who had recently joined their party. The man had shown great courage and excellent combat skills, which suddenly reminded the village chief of someone else. A man impersonating a noble had come to this village, so he had beaten him nearly to death and chased him away. Eldance just smiled, thinking his friend was still as hot-tempered as ever. But the nobleman in Eldance's party was completely different, an upright and poised man who stood up to protect everyone. In particular, he didn't even accept any payment or gifts, a statement that astonished the old village chief. Knowing Eldance was not one to boast, the village elder tried to figure out how to keep the young man, as there were too many bandits lately. In this era, a true knight is strong enough to slaughter an entire company of mercenaries, so they are a great help for security. So the village chief gleefully asked Eldance to lend him the young man for a week. No, a few weeks, due to the rampant bandit situation. Indeed, with age comes cunning. Eldance smiled on the outside, but knew full well this man was trying to poach his companion. The village chief, on the other hand, cursed under his breath, calling Eldance a pathetic bastard for daring to ignore him. Meanwhile, Johann felt like he was starving to death. Goran approached and struck up a conversation. He handed him a bag. Inside was a small amount of money they had confiscated from the bandits. In fact, they had sold off all the assets and weapons of that group, earning a considerable sum of money. Johann asked him if he had received his share yet, but Goran said it belonged solely to Johann, so they wouldn't take a single coin. Suddenly, Johann gave the whole bag of money back to them, telling them to go and divide it among everyone. Goran was astonished because it was a huge amount. Johann said it was fine, that he had already taken his share, just a few coins, but tears welled up in his eyes. It was a painful but deliberate trade-off. If he didn't go with this company group, he was afraid he would run into the pursuing soldiers. Not only did he share the money, but Johann also patted Goran on the shoulder, saying that the credit belonged to everyone, and they were all comrades. These eloquent words left Goran stunned, while Johann walked away. The young Goran believed he had been fortunate to meet a truly noble knight. Everyone gathered at the village hall. Then Goran announced, "Sir Johann, to commend everyone, has decided to divide the spoils." The entire group was surprised. They had never encountered a situation like this before, but they immediately erupted in joy. They chanted Johann's name all night long. In a rented room, Johann slept soundly, hugging his sword. Suddenly, there was the sound of footsteps outside the door. The door creaked open. The candle was blown out. A stranger stepped forward. Right in front of Johann, in the night, holding a gleaming blade in his hand, he wanted to stab him to death. The night before, Goran told everyone to come forward and take their share. Everyone burst into cheers. Meanwhile, Johann left. Believing that he had regained the trust of the entire group with just a small amount of money, Johann had won big. Suddenly, someone approached him. The man said he knew full well that he was the one who traveled with Eldance. It turned out he was there to show him to a room that had been paid for by the Ketana company. That old merchant was really thoughtful, so he followed the innkeeper. Meanwhile, there was a guard who received no coins. It was Gamson, the one who had fled when the group was in danger. He cursed angrily. Then he saw Johann through the window. He had an idea. Look at his sword. Gamson couldn't restrain himself. That night, Johann was soaking in a hot bath. This feels amazing. With a roast chicken on the bed, these simple things made him happy. On second thought, although he was born into a noble family, he still had to sleep on a shabby old bed, yet these days, all he longed for was to return to that old bed. I never thought things would turn out this way. The mad emperor sent a madman, turning thousands into dead men and hundreds into homeless people. The fortunate thing was that he was still alive. Poor Johann suddenly felt a bit of regret over Karamov's offer. If he had gone to the palace with him, at least he wouldn't be hunted down and executed. He then tried to look at it from a different perspective. It seems those soldiers really don't dare to oppose Eldance. How strange. A proud mercenary company wouldn't be intimidated by just one merchant, so they must be wary of the trading company Eldance belongs to. When he was young, he learned about trading companies at the village market. Companies from the same organization share information and funds across borders. A powerful company can move politicians, nobles, even an entire nation's army. Now that he is being chased by the empire, he needs to get close to a trading company somehow to survive. He could only think this through slowly. He decided to eat his fill first and then get some sleep. After that, Johann slept soundly, and the masked man snuck up to steal his sword, but to his surprise, his hand was caught by Johann. The thief was startled. Johann asked coldly if he was one of Karamov's henchmen. The panicked man brandished his knife, shouting at Johann to let him go. In the end, he was knocked out of the room. How unlucky, but it wasn't over for him yet. The thief clawed at the ground, begging for his life. 5 minutes before the incident, the innkeeper was fast asleep. 2 men tiptoed upstairs. One was Pra, a young man from this village, and the other was Gamson, a scoundrel from the mercenary band. They were plotting to find a thief named Buln to team up with. Meanwhile, another man named Pell was going to steal Johann's warhorse. He was highly skilled and easily mounted the horse, Philip. Pra asked if Johann's sword was truly valuable. Gamson said it was the sword that had sliced a man in two. A sword with such power couldn't be cheap. Without that sword, that self-proclaimed knight was no better than them. Suddenly, there was a loud noise. The 2 guys peeked out and saw the notorious thief get sent flying out the door, screaming like he was being dragged to hell. Gamson froze. The coward stood rooted to the spot, no longer hearing what Pra was asking. Then he took off running. He just wanted to live. Right behind him was Pra, the landlord, calling after him, but only his denials could be heard. Meanwhile, Pell was riding his horse Philip in the courtyard. His teammates called to him from behind. When he turned around, he saw his 2 friends fleeing like madmen. Pell asked where Buln was, and was told that he would die soon. Then, the 3 of them mounted their horses. Gamson urged him to flee. Suddenly, the window to Johann's room exploded. The 3 of them looked up in terror and saw a demon descending from above. It was Johann, the dirt-poor nobleman who had just been robbed. He must have been furious. The southern outskirts of the Holy Kingdom, a few soldiers were nailing some boards to posts, and then checked their sturdiness after nailing them in. On the board was a notice for the execution of an entire family for stealing a noble's property. The 2 soldiers didn't even know what these people had stolen to warrant such an execution. The other one said that they had stolen chickens and eggs. Executed for just that? That's horrible. At a restaurant in the neighborhood, Eldance was eating his dinner and drinking tea. Is how a cat drinks water. A person came to report that they had a problem. It was the mercenary Gamson, who had tried to steal Johann's belongings. Eldance couldn't believe it. It seemed the effort to get Johann to come along to Marcel had gone up in smoke, but there was still a way. Eldance ordered Gamson's arrest and had to act as if they were not involved at all. The young man was impressed with the old man, for he was decisive and never lost his composure. More than anyone, Eldance had learned the importance of staying calm in a crisis like this. The scariest part was that stealing from a nobleman was punishable by execution, so Eldance had to be extremely cautious. Extremely cautious. In the village chief's room, they were ending today's meeting. Suddenly, a young man burst in, reporting that the village troublemakers had tried to steal from a noble. The old man immediately slammed the table in frustration. Then he shouted that he didn't know what to do anymore. In his haste, the old man ordered all the village's tributes to be prepared, along with a slave to be offered to this noble, and also to prepare to execute those damn troublemakers. Upon hearing this, everyone was horrified. They were the children of some of the people present. The old village chief roared, raising a chair high. He smashed it to pieces in front of everyone. Then, he reminded everyone of the royal edict issued by the emperor. Their entire village could be slaughtered, so they needed to strike first to survive. Those who covet a noble's property would have their tongues cut out, along with their immediate families, or be hanged. In some places, entire families have already been wiped out because of this insane decree. Just for demanding a chicken and 3 eggs as payment, that's what these nobles are like. What do you think that noble your brats provoked is going to do now? Since they've offended a noble's pride, he'll try to punish us somehow. He might cut off the hands of everyone in the village, all while spouting nonsense about knightly honor. The man wanted to ask Count Zarfin to step in and help them, but the village chief insisted that he wouldn't care about the lives of commoners. The only way was to do it this grumpy old old man's way. Although he was also heartbroken, forced to make a sacrifice for the village to survive. Some people had gathered at the largest tree in the village. The criminals knelt on the ground, sobbing. Standing before them was the impoverished nobleman, Johann. He was also sweating as he realized this matter seemed too big. He had thought they were assassins sent by the emperor, but they were just some village idiots trying to steal an expensive-looking sword. He should have hidden it, after all. I might as well scare these kids a bit and then let them go. What bad luck. The village chief timidly approached, greeted Johann politely, and asked how he was, but he said angrily that it was not fine at all. Does the village of Lutzbeck welcome its sleeping guests by pointing knives at them and robbing them? The village chief immediately prostrated himself and kowtowed in apology, to the point that his forehead was bleeding, and he admitted it was all because his supervision had not been strict enough. Seeing this, Johann thought he had scared them enough, so he told them to learn their lesson and disperse. Instantly, a knife swung up. The village elder wanted to execute the criminal immediately for Johann's honor. Damn it, this madman has gone too far. Johann could only speak up to stop him. Unexpectedly, the old man was still adamant about dealing with this Burlm guy. Sorry, Burlm. Then the blade came swinging down. The horrified mother covered her face, only able to apologize to her son. Immediately, a terrifyingly loud boom rang out. Johann was furious because the man refused to listen. Before the blade could draw blood, fortunately, the old man was on the verge of collapsing. Everyone was trembling. The whole village fell silent. Johann stood up and asked loudly if they had all gone mad, killing people over this? Simply put, if you want to make it up to me, give me the money. What the? The crowd immediately turned their attention to him. He was worried that he had revealed his greedy nature, so he had to rephrase it. He said that honor is nothing compared to a life, and ordered them to release the prisoners immediately and disperse. The knife dropped. The village chief fell to his knees, exclaiming in awe as if touched by a divine light, "Sir Johann, you are able to make such an honorable decision." Then, the troublemakers' families came to take their children back. The old man couldn't believe such a noble person existed, feeling regret for doubting Eldance's words, and he even wanted to skin his old friend alive. And so, the entire village knelt down to thank Johann for his benevolence. Everyone, including Eldance, was moved to gratitude, except for Gamson, who seemed oblivious, because no one came to untie him. As Khan approached, he heard Gamson's voice urging someone to quickly untie him. He was still fuming inside, regretting that he had joined this cursed mercenary group. But to his surprise, Khan's blade was at his throat. Khan told him to relax. Gamson was utterly terrified, not knowing what he intended to do. Of course, to deal with this tumor once and for all. Johann doesn't understand. Damn it. Gamson was executed on the spot. Johann angrily asked what they were doing. Khan simply said that he was following the decree of the reigning emperor. Those who coveted a nobleman's property were punished. Johann had made it clear that he didn't want to see their blood. Goran was tense. Eldance was even more tense. Lord Johann, even mercenaries have honor and a code that we must abide by. Gamson's cowardly act trampled upon the honor and lives of our mercenary company. I was simply defending our honor and our code. Then, Khan presented the hilt of his sword to Johann, saying that if this went against Johann's dignity, then he asked Johann to punish him. Johann was stunned. Right, mercenaries have their own kind of honor. Khan is risking his life to defend that honor. Then he touched the hilt of his sword. The crowd held their breath, but Johann unexpectedly apologized for not considering the other's position. Goran and Eldance were astonished. Yes, that is the bearing of a true nobleman. Then Khan was ordered to put his knife away, and thanked Johann for his understanding. Goran immediately rushed out, asking if he was crazy for arguing with a noble. Khan also admitted that if he did something like that again, he would ask the captain to kick him far away himself. Eldance got goosebumps, affirming that this young noble was completely different, upright yet brave, and not the least bit overbearing in his authority. How can someone like that still exist? Could he be from a monastery? The sly Eldance immediately thought of bringing Johann to the company, certain that his own reputation would skyrocket. At dawn, the group set off again. Johann opened the golden pocket watch. This was something he had looted from the village's tribute. It looked expensive, but it was broken. And one more thing, someone he would have to take care of. Thinking back, that day, the old village chief brought out offerings, along with a slave. He immediately grabbed the watch. Amidst the chief's incessant flattery, then he also transferred the slave, saying that the boy knew the land well and was very useful. Johann had never seen a slave so neglected, Leaving him like this would be very dangerous. So he told them to wash the man, and that he would accept him with gratitude. As it turned out, the slave was Goiden. Johann was not used to ordering anyone around, especially a slave, and besides, the look in his eyes was just too strange. Night fell. Tonight they had monkey meat and soup, all thanks to Johann's hunting. Then his servant arrived, bringing him his meal. He told Goiden not to call him master anymore, just to call him by his name. Goiden blushed, reluctantly agreeing with a lack of confidence. One couldn't really tell if they were a boy, a girl, or... Johann started to ask about Goiden's story, but Goiden was hesitant to tell it because it was full of unhappy events. However, Johann also said that he had no unhappy stories of his own, which surprised Goiden, and that he would tell his story to Goiden after hearing Goiden's. So Goiden began to speak. I was once a traveling merchant in the eastern region, transporting and selling weapons. Most of them were made by nearby blacksmiths. Then one day a noble ordered me to smuggle gold. Smuggling gold is punishable by death at minimum, yet you survived. Why would an arms merchant agree to smuggle? And your young still look like a kid. I needed a lot of money to send to my family. My younger siblings were sick and starving, so I delivered gold as the noble instructed. Then one day he reported me. He used you as long as he needed to, then threw you away to shut you up. So that's what happened. Goiden didn't want to appeal, as commoners had virtually no power. That damned emperor. So did you manage to send money to your siblings? It turned out Goiden hadn't sent anything. He had used the money to bribe the guards, leaving nothing left. Then Goiden broke down in tears, as if given permission by Johann. Johann remained silent. Because of the cruelty of this world, the weak will become prey, and no one dares to oppose the nobles. Unfortunately, he couldn't worry about others because he was being hunted. Then he called Goiden, who hastily agreed. Johann declared that they were now comrades. From now on, let's do our best to survive together. Suddenly, a soldier came running to report that there were monsters. Why would there be monsters here? Then Johann ran after him, leaving Goiden behind, who was still deeply moved by his master's words. The three of them were watching from a bush. From the other side came a suspicious red light and bizarre sounds. Johann analyzed for a moment. Then he stood up. He said that it was fine. He also told the two soldiers to put their weapons away. Johann decided to go ahead alone to investigate. Khan was a little worried because fighting monsters requires not only courage and experience, but also specialized skills. Gorin decided they would both wait. They could not take any more risks because they still had to protect Lord Eldance. Johann went inside. This familiar pressure felt like it could freeze the heart. A pair of crimson eyes stared out from the dark forest. This time, Johann was less frightened. The black wolf was a bad omen, and he believed it was the same one. The last time they met, it attacked the wolves of Aquitaine instead of Johann. This monster is extremely dangerous, with high speed and an overwhelming oppressive power. But he believed it wouldn't attack him. Then he invited it out. A low growl rang out. Johann cheerfully asked if it had followed him, and thanked it for saving his life last time. The onlookers were stunned, having never seen anyone talk to a monster so gently. The wolf leaned in close to his face. It clamped its jaws directly around his head. Damn it. They had just finished praising him, but the wolf was just playing. Johann didn't know what to name this wolf either. Bad Omen, Black Wolf, or Dawn's Guide. Eldance immediately thought Dawn's Guide was a wonderful name. In the Eastern Empire, there's an old song like this. In an age of war, on a night bathed in moonlight, a warrior gave a name to the wolf. Once it was named, the wolf bowed its head before the warrior, and Dawn's Guide, blue eyes shining in the dark. Dawn's Guide, it ran at the front of the battlefield, and everyone shouted its name. Dawn's Guide. At the end of the war that tore the continent apart, the warrior found peace and died as a hero. For 3 days and nights a wolf wept bitterly at his side. Then the black wolf set out again for places. Dawn's Guide. Johann was a little skeptical, since it was considered a bad omen. Fortunately, Eldance was knowledgeable, explaining that Dawn's Guide originated from the legends of the Eastern Empire and was distorted when it spread to the south. Dawn's Guide destroys evil and submits to brave heroes. That's a line from an ancient Eastern imperial text. So that's the origin of this beast. Indeed, it really loves to lick him. Curious, Eldance wanted to try and touch the wolf. But before he could even pet it, he was mercilessly warned by Dawn. How truly sad. It only submits to Johann. Suddenly, the old man remembered something. There was definitely a detail like that in Eastern legends. If you name the spirit beast that follows you, it will become your subordinate. No way that southern bumpkin is the hero from the legends. And so he asked him if he had named this legendary beast, the Dawn's Guide, yet, and suggested naming it right away, because according to legend, something extraordinary would happen after it was named. And so the two of them pondered over a really cool name, like Katana. Johann mused. The last time he saw it was right after burying Karamov. Then your name shall be Karamov. Damn it, that name left Eldance utterly stunned, while the wolf's eyes blazed brightly, radiating a terrifying light. A dazzling aura appeared on its tail. From its eyes a blue light shot straight up into the sky, so brilliant that everyone had to shield their eyes. Is the wolf transforming? Its whole body was a blend of pure blue and majestic black. Its name was now Dawn's Guide Karamov. It stepped forward and bowed its head respectfully before its master. Johann immediately stroked it and said that he looked forward to working with it. You didn't forget to praise Eldance for being right. It's just that right now Eldance is kneeling on the ground. Everything matches the legend. This is the first time I've witnessed a scene from mythology unfold right before my eyes. I've admired you from the moment I first saw you. Just like that, Eldance showered Johann with praise, and even called him the hero of troubled times. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was astonished. Could he really be the hero from the legend? Johann sighed. He said to Eldance that he didn't dare claim to be a hero, just a wanderer who couldn't even afford his daily meals. Moreover, he was also being hunted, which of course he wouldn't say out loud, and he apologized to him for disappointing him. But Eldance didn't forget, seizing the opportunity to introduce him to the company. Johann had no concept of Marcel or Eldance's company at all, so the old man began to introduce, saying that Marcel is famous as a free trade city. Every city in this region has to go through Marcel. More importantly, it's one of the few cities beyond the Emperor's reach. After hearing this, the poor money-loving knight Johann immediately went along with the old man's wishes. Furthermore, the place was worth considering, as it was beyond the Emperor's control, and a chance to restart his life as a merchant. Eldance walked and sang joyfully, while Johann could only hope that people wouldn't spread too many rumors about him. It would be great if he could be the hero of that legend. Unfortunately, Johann believed that no hero was ever hunted down, let alone a poor starving wanderer like him. Johann clenched his fists, believing that the future might be better. With my own will, I'll move forward one step at a time. Let's go. To the city of Alati, wealthy merchants.